What up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the High Value Agent Podcast, where we inspire people to create a better life through real estate. And I want to share a story or an experience that I had. It was actually last week. I have some basketball players in my family. I got three sons that play basketball. My two oldest are playing basketball at a pretty high level. One's 13, about to be 14, and then one is 11. Okay, and they're taking it serious. Like, this is what they want to do. So we're training every day. I'm putting them in environments that's going to challenge them, playing with older kids and sometimes even grown men. And again, just putting in the hours so then they can get better at their craft. And with that being said, last week I took them to Ohio. We live in Indiana. I took them over to Ohio. It was like a 4 or 5 hour drive to meet Mark Price. Now, Mark Price is a former NBA point guard. He played in the 90s, and he was a monster. I mean, I think 4-time NBA All Star. I think he was even a 4-time All NBA point guard, and he was one of the greatest shooters. Like, if you know anything about like the best shooters in the game, his name would be mentioned in that list, right? So this was a big deal, and I'm thankful and blessed to be able to provide that opportunity to my boys. But they were able to learn a lot from him. But here's the beauty: I want to share what I learned, because I didn't do it for me. I did it for them. But as I was, in that environment and hearing what Mark had to say, and again, let's keep in mind, Mark is 6 foot. Like, I'm right around 5'10", maybe a little above 5'10". And I mean, he's on the basketball cards, it says 6 foot. But I mean, when you look at him, he's like barely taller than me. And we're talking about, like, he's going against 6'8", 7-footers, 6'5". I mean, he was playing against Jordan. He was playing against Scottie Pippen. He was playing against, like, all these elite, super tall athletes, and he was able to be a killer out there. So, um, one of the things that really stood out to me in that conversation, in that meeting, in those training sessions, was the ability to keep everything simple, and the ability and the skill to stay attached to the process, which, and he will talk about, like, the amount of work he had to put in and the hours, right? But a lot of people put hours in, but they don't do it consistently, or they put hours in and the quality of the work in those hours is low. There's no intensity, there's no intention, and it's just kind of wasting time. So he was able to unpack a lot of that stuff. But the sticking to the process was something that, from a business standpoint, I talk about all the time. It's actually one of the things that I want to remind myself of. And when I was getting into the business, one of the first things I learned was you cannot be high on one day and low on one day and so attached to the outcome, because when you do that, it's hard to stay consistent. But when you can fall in love with the process, when you can fall in love with doing the work, okay, that is like using the idea of the work is the goal, not the outcome, but doing the work is the goal. I was able to actually make a lot of progress fast in my career. And honestly, if it wasn't for that, and again, like, a lot of times we don't need to learn new things. With internet, with YouTube, with podcasts, with all the stuff, and there's so much information out there. It's information overload. A lot of times we need to be reminded of what we already know. Further, we need to actually take action on what we already know. Okay. And when we take that action on what we know, we're able to have discernment, and we're able to identify what actually would work for you or work for me, right? And how I can take what I have, you know, done And with the experience I've gained, and whether it worked or didn't work, I now have discernment. I have context to make adjustments, right? But he was very clear on like, man, like I show up and before I shoot a 3-pointer, I'm standing in front of the rim and with one arm, I have the ball in one hand. I have my guide hand. He was right-handed, right? He'd have the ball in his right hand. He'll have his guide hand on his hip, and he will stand 1 foot or 2 feet in front of the basket. And he would just shoot one arm, boom. And he will maybe do 10, maybe 15, maybe sometimes 20. And then he would take a step back, right? So many kids these days, they want to be a 3-point specialist and bomb these long 3-pointers right when they step on the court. And it's like what Mark exemplified and what he talked about was just keeping it simple. It's not extremely exciting to do form shooting, is what they call it, one arm form shooting, but that's the building block into becoming a great shooter. The building block of building and building an incredible real estate business is by doing like keeping the main thing, keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate nothing. With growth comes complexity. Your job is to try to simplify as much as you can. And that form shooting for you, and when it correlates to business, could be role playing your script, could be um, uh, you know, getting into the office at a certain time and you're consistently doing it, right? Because again, we want the results, but we don't realize Mark Price being a 6 foot point guard, playing against all these giants, became great because he kept the main thing. He kept it simple. He started small and he expanded over time instead of trying to jump 5 chapters ahead in the book, right? He started on chapter 1 and then he will work his way up through the chapters, right? So I I just thought that was important for my kids to hear because it's something that I constantly would tell my children, but you know how that goes, right? After a while, it just kind of becomes "Wom, wom, 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 wom." But for them to hear that from, somebody who's done it at a high level, by the way, somebody who actually made it. Like it's damn near impossible to make it to professional sports now, right? With just so many, the demand is so high for kids to want to play professional sports. It's hard to get in there. There's not everyone can make it. This guy made it, and he literally said things that you would be shocked. It's like you show up, you start close to the rim, you don't even jump on that form shot. You work your way back. Cool. Oh, we work on layups. Let's do right hand first. Like the fundamentals. Like the fundamentals was the name of the game. Learning and mastering the fundamentals, starting small and expanding while keeping the main thing the main thing. Beautiful message. So I really appreciated it because I really think genuinely the moment we left Ohio, I believe my kids grew. Their skill set, yeah, they got better because over the 3 days they put work in. I mean, after every training session, and those sessions were like 4 hours, okay? Because those sessions were, it wasn't just like we're training on our skills, but we were also training on IQ. We were training on mindset. Okay, so we're talking 3 4 hour sessions, 3 4 hour sessions over 3 days. When we left Ohio, they learned, they grew, they had a better understanding as to what it takes to be great. So those are the lessons that I and my children recently learned from an NBA point guard. Okay. I highly recommend go check them out. If you're not a basketball fan, it doesn't matter. It would be good for you to know who Mark Price is. I think it will make the message land a little better. Go to YouTube and put in Mark Price. He played for Cleveland Cavaliers. I think he played for the Orlando Magic. That may have been where he got drafted. But He's real big. He's a real big name, and if you're a Cleveland fan, you definitely know who Mark Price is. But yeah, check him out. Check him out. And a shout out to Mark Price for the reminder for me and for the lesson and reminder for my children as well. You are definitely making an impact out here. So thank you. All right, y'all. Wanted to share that message. Keep it simple in your business. Keep the main thing the main thing. If you want to live a sexy life as a result of the real estate business, you got to have a boring daily focus. Okay. The money is in the mundane. Okay. That's just the way it is. If you can master the mundane, if you can show up and role play, prospect for 2 to 3 hours a day, do 1 hour of follow up, meet and greet clients, right? Get contracts signed, negotiate deals. If you can keep that the main thing and you're consistent and you don't look left and right for the new hack to kind of make it more sexy and exciting, and you're no, if you can avoid that, stay tunnel vision, you could end up being the Mark Price or the Kobe Bryant or the um, Anthony Edwards or the Tim Duncan or whoever. You can end up being that in the real estate business or other businesses. Cool. All right, y'all. Appreciate you guys. Stay strong, be powerful. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.